Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this talk. I will start with the short overview, like what this talk will be about. As you see in the title, it's about trust in autonomous ecosystems, and I'm actually quite happy that we go after a couple of talks about robotics, where you can see this in practice. So you can really see that the not only automation but also autonomous robots and autonomous systems are moving forward. So as a society, we will be facing the cities where we might meet those autonomous driving cars and other autonomous systems. And actually, it's quite tricky because humans in interaction with these systems are quite vulnerable, right? We are very fragile agents in that city ecosystem when this robotic ecosystem can move on their own. And actually, we do not even have that like legal infrastructure in place in case something bad happen. It's not really clear like who is responsible. So, as a society, we should really ask the question like, are we protected enough, and can we trust those systems? And as like me, I'm one of the representatives of the scientific community. As a scientific community, we're asking this question: what can we do now to prepare those systems to be really trustworthy in the future, because those things take time, and this autonomy is really reaching the reality. Very short introduction. So my name is Buhnova. I'm from Czech Republic, from Masaryk University. Also active in the Chiquitas organization, bringing more girls in computing. If anybody is interested, happy to chat on that topic as well. My background is software architecture, so I've been part of software architecture community for a very long time, doing different things. So I started with like compliance checking between different components, then going to reliability engineering, performance engineering, scalability, deployment for cloud and optimization of an architecture for cloud deployment and application being scalable. Then things about cybersecurity and cybercrime, and that is super fascinating topic. So actually, that is from where I'm coming today. So there is really a huge risk of cybercrime in the space, having huge consequences, and trusting these systems, knowing how the cybercrime is growing, is like what is motivating looking into those directions. Okay, so let's look at the architecture perspective first, because we are in the software architecture room. So as a software architecture community, I would say like up until 2000, we were very comfortable with viewing systems as analogy of buildings. So thinking about architecture of a system similarly to architecture of a building. And soon realizing that what is important when you are deciding is this building having a nice architecture, good architecture, is not really about the structure, but more about the quality of living, where aesthetic can be the part of the quality of living as well, right? But also, how is this like building really supporting my living within the building? And the same is true for software systems. So as architects, we don't really focus on the structure. We ask which structure can support the quality of living within that software system, which means like performance, reliability, security, portability, testability, you name it. Now, I said that this worked pretty well until like 2000. The situation changed with systems becoming largely distributed. So now we are not really building architects, we are more like urban architects, right? Like designing the city plans, because systems are not the standalone monolith anymore, like they are distributed. And that makes this quality of living even more interesting, because the quality of living in a city is even more like exciting problem, because you can think, okay, do I need one big hospital or many small hospitals? Do I need one big school or many small schools? Like what improves the quality of living in that city? And the same is true for software systems. We just changed the terminology to performance, reliability, security, etc. My claim for the talk today is that there is another shift happening nowadays, and that is that the systems are not really isolated buildings that stand on their place. They are becoming more living. So systems nowadays can move around. The systems can start forming partnerships. And the systems can also, like in terms of sustainability, not having the capability to complete the task on their own. So they need to seek partnership with other systems to actually complete the task. So systems are not really buildings anymore. They are more resembling societies. So actually the system can start forming coalitions and friendships and start forming around goals. These goals can be collaborative goals, competitive goals, but we are still speaking about systems, right? So this is that interesting shift, which is becoming dangerous as well, because obviously, as in societies, you can have a malicious person hijacking a part of the community or society to do bad thing without knowing, right? So that is becoming dangerous because especially with artificial intelligence being part of those systems, artificial intelligence makes you optimize. But like if you optimize under the wrong assumptions that are fed by somebody malicious, then you might actually be hijacked to cause harm, right? So this is what is the scary part about those systems being more autonomous and at the same time being really dynamic. Let's look at some scenarios. So when we work with scenarios, it's typically good to look in like some specific cases. So like chose transportation. Like in transportation, we are speaking about those like dynamic ecosystem, and it's easy to imagine an autonomous driving car, right? So when we speak about these partnerships and coordination, for example, in the highway, like one thing that you can think about is that you need some information exchange and coordinated moves. So imagine that you want to overtake another vehicle, then you need to know whether that vehicle will continue on the same speed or will change the speed during your move of overtaking that vehicle, right? Now, do you trust that other vehicle providing you the information or you don't? Because nowadays, whenever we form these systems collaborating with each other, we a priori trust the information we are given, right? When we access a service and say, what's the weather tomorrow? We receive an answer and we trust that answer. We don't question whether we should trust it or not. But now imagine the situation that is it really safe to trust everything we are provided? Is it really safe to trust the information that the vehicle will not try to interfere, it will not try to harm me in the interaction? So this is one scenario. So I need to decide, okay, so this car seems to be going in a certain pace. Do I trust that information? So there's information exchange in this coordinated moves. Now, sometimes this information might not be trusted, not because the car is bad and wants to cause harm. Sometimes it's just a faulty sensor. But still, I should decide, hey, do I trust that sensor? Right? So that's one example of a scenario. Another is really imagine a misbehaving vehicle, which is consciously misbehaving. That's a very scary scenario for the human societies. So you can have a vehicle arriving to a city with the intention to cause harm. We see that like this is pretty scary. Like how do we protect our cities from such a vehicle, right? Another scenario is that you can have a coordinated platoon where vehicles, and we are speaking about sustainability. Just imagine these vehicles are traveling on the highway and they travel in a group. We call it group platoon. This platoon is really nice and effective way to reduce air friction and save some fuel consumption. But whenever a new vehicle wants to join the platoon should decide, do we trust that vehicle to really travel on the same speed with us? Because if it doesn't and it will break in the middle, it will really cause harm and can, this can affect human lives. Another interesting one, and I like this one because that is very close to whatever like all of you are working on, which is software development. So very often when we think about a car, we also think about getting the automated downloads of the runtime updates, right? So during update or during runtime, your car can actually download some updates and like update your software, which is influencing then the critical driving functions. Now, what if this update cannot be trusted? Like that car should have the ability to decide, hey, I don't trust the update. There's something wrong. Now, you might ask, like, why I should question the update. It's coming from my car producer, so I should obviously trust it. The reason why I should question trust in this case as well is because it is shown that 44% of tech companies have insider attacks ongoing in those environments. Now, insider attack is attack done by your employees, so like a person in your organization, and very often they are not very harmful because they are done out of boredom or just trying to find a shortcut to overcome some security thing or get information faster and not asking a colleague or manager to provide that information. So very often there is not the malicious intent. On the other hand, there are cases where the vulnerability is inserted in a piece of software on purpose to do a revenge, for example, of a past employee who was fired, etc. So, like this is happening, that an employee in the organization can really inject a problem. So then, when you imagine the car downloading an update, there should be some moment evaluating of the car. Like, do I trust that update? Actually, do I allow that update to control my driving functions right away? And another interesting example is human to machine trust, because now in those examples I was mentioning, like machine to machine trust, right? So human to machine trust is also very interesting. Like when a human is sitting in the car that has the autonomous driving capability, like the human might be hesitant to have a full trust for that vehicle. So like in these scenarios, what they are trying to show is that in this highly dynamic environment, it's actually good to think about how to build trust between those systems, and it can help us with making them more safe. But then also like understanding that really not everything can be trusted. While at the moment, our software engineering community is working with full trust. Whenever I access a service, I just trust the result I get from the service. So in these dynamic ecosystems, there are some things to understand about them. They can join, the systems can join the ecosystem, they can leave it. Very often, I talk to them as a black box. So I cannot really say, hey, I want to look inside your code and I will decide whether I trust you. The other system doesn't show me their code. So they are black box, and still I need to decide how I build my trust within those interactions. That can be very harmful if I misjudge. Okay, so let's look at the topic a little bit. So first of all, and I can speak from the perspective of the software engineering and software architecture community for long, and I think that many times in the organization still nowadays, when somebody says trust, we actually hear trustworthiness, and it's two different things. What I mean, trustworthiness is about your system, which is under your control, being or not being trustworthy. It is something you can influence. So you're developing a system and you are doing your best to make it reliable, make it secure, so that you can call it trustworthy. That's trustworthiness. And for long, we have been focusing on that. We have been focusing on making our system high quality, right? Trust is something else. Trust is about, do I trust that black box system I'm talking to that I know nothing about? And even if it's coming from a trusted party or trusted development company, what if there is an insider attacker in that company who developed that piece of that service that I'm using? So that is trust, and that's what is different about trustworthiness, right? And trust, and it's not the same thing. Also, engineers many times think, okay, if I will develop trust, like high quality or trustworthy system, that's all I can do for trust, and that's not true. Like there is so much that can be done for the trust building, and we'll take a look at that. Why it is hard? Why it is hard to decide, do I trust somebody? It's mainly because there will be hidden malicious intentions and behaviors in those dynamic ecosystems, especially when we think about AI driving certain decisions. Because AI ultimately is optimizing. If AI will, and it's the same with humans, right? Like if a human will find out, oh, if I behave well, I will get access to resource that I otherwise do not get access to, and then I can steal the resource, right? Like if a human can learn this, AI might do the same. Like optimizing how can I win most, and maybe finding out, pretending that I'm a good and then stealing it, right? And this is something that is really tricky about AI in general. Like, you're optimizing, and you will find your workarounds and shortcuts. So these malicious intentions, they are hidden. Like pretending I'm a good service, and then actually stealing something, getting something, violating something, is something that we should get ready for. Like this can really happen. Now, some people, when thinking about what can go wrong, start thinking, okay, we should actually take this under control. Like, if a car can enter a city and try to harm somebody or hurt somebody, then shouldn't we do some technology ban, or stop autonomous driving cars altogether, or whatever? Shouldn't we stop this from happening? And my answer to it's not realistic. Like, it's not the technology that will be dangerous, it's the humans, right, that will keep trying to go further and further and further with the technology. It's not really something we could control that easily. And so it's actually good to have mechanisms in place that will help us build those systems so that we feel safe as humans in interaction with those systems, even if they continue to be in place. So how can we do that? How can we protect the safety in midst of the technological evolution? I would say, like, proposed solution I'm putting on the table here, and it's something to think about, is let's get inspiration from how human societies work and how the systems we rely on work. That's also like how neural networks rely on neurons we know from our thinking function, right? Here, the idea is, what if we actually employ the intelligence within the whole ecosystem, the different systems that are in place, to help us decide about the trust by building kind of like an immune response ecosystem? What do I mean with immune response? Like, in your biology, like, immune response work by engaging the whole ecosystem, like in large scale, to say, hey, there is a virus, be careful, this looks like a virus, right? And then isolate the virus. The same way, if you have something misbehaving in a city ecosystem, the other vehicles, the other systems can actually point their finger and say, hey, there is something weird going on. And in this case, we might then have better chances to get that misbehavior under control, or at least know about it and take action, right? Like, do some safeguarding or safety assurance action. And I'm trying to bring trust now in the picture as a facilitator in this thing, because the similar way we work like that as a society, right? So if you just imagine an example, you have a like human community, right? You have a village, and an intruder comes into the village. Like, what happens is that first people start observing, like what that person is doing and how they behave. And first, maybe they will keep distance, but after a while, saying, okay, maybe it's not the intruder. Like, this person is behaving well and starting interacting with other people. You start gaining the trust. We can employ the similar kind of thinking in terms of digital ecosystems. We can really see, okay, maybe first I stay cautious when communicating with a system, which I'm not sure if I can trust. And by time, actually building trust in that system and then letting it interact with me more closely. If we understand what is trust, because I mentioned that it's different thing than trustworthiness, it's different thing than just quality, like reliability, etc. It's very nice to look into the different definitions. And overall, trust is a belief about something that is not under my control, and that belief is done under a situation characterized by vulnerability and uncertainty. So that's quite important to say, because those effects, like how vulnerable I feel in interaction with that other system, or like my system feels in interaction with the other system. For example, how important that information is for me, like how important it is that I can trust that information, that other system provides to me influences my trust building. What is interesting about trust is that it is highly subjective, and it will be the same will be true in systems. So when your system is deciding whether they trust another system, this decision will be highly subjective. It is also asymmetric. So the thing that one system trusts another system doesn't guarantee that the trust goes in the other way, but it is quite transitive. So if I trust a provider and that provider trusts another provider, I am likely to trust the transitively, right? The trusted provider. Maybe the trust degrades a little bit, like it's not that full propagation of the transition, but like there is some influence. And it is another factor that is important about trust. Like when you look at human societies, how they build trust, they very often consult their peer network, right? Like we never build trust just on their own. So when we build trust, we actually build trust on the experience with that other person or system or entity or whatever. But then we have a tendency to consult our peer network. So we have a tendency to build actually a trusted network and then consult this network whenever we are deciding about trusting. That's also this thing of like a local, my local decision, and that's my own experience, and a more global environment, and that's the peer network. But not only, like when you get on a Uber car, why do you trust that driver? It's typically because you check their rating, and you know there is a certain reputation given by that rating, right? So it's not your peers who would give those ratings to that driver, but you trust the driver if the reputation is collected from like a good enough number of other participants in the network, right? So it is your peer opinion and it is the reputation. So it can look like this roughly. So you like the individual things that you can see in there. I think you don't see my pointer; it's too thin. But on the left side, when you are deciding about a trust, so you are the truster, deciding whether you trust the trustee, right? And you have certain interaction with the trustee. Then your decision is based typically on your direct trust, which is your experience. The experience can be the present experience or past experience with that other system. And then it's the more like indirect trust, which is the reputation and the peer opinion. This happens, like the evaluation happens in a context. So context always decides, like, do I trust or not? Because, and what is important about that context is because that influences how vulnerable you find yourself in that interaction. So when you take, for example, the example of, you're just requesting a service and you don't know if you can trust that service. Maybe you don't feel that vulnerable. You just take the service and if it's not precise enough, not much happens. But under other conditions, like when your system is, for example, an autonomous driving car that downloads an update, you feel really vulnerable if that update was faulty or malicious, right? If there was something malicious in that update, so you may be more cautious. So how vulnerable you find yourself in that situation influences the decision. And there is also one thing that influences your decision, and that's the repairability. This repairability is like, do you get some compensation or is it revertible, right? If something bad happens. And that is like a big issue with technology nowadays, because when something bad happens due to technology or technology error, we do not really have the legal aspect sorted out. We do not really know if somebody will compensate us for the problem that was happening, right? So it is quite important to realize that in a human society, we are quite okay with like understanding, okay, the person can go to jail, the person can actually be forced to give me the money back. But in this like virtual world, it is still like very uncertain and very shaky. There are discussions. I was attending a very interesting talk by Philip Koopman, who is into autonomous driving. saying that in the US, the lobby of autonomous driving companies is so strong that they're trying to persuade the courts and the judges that it's not their responsibility if something wrong happens with the autonomous driving car. And unfortunately, the digital literacy of the judges, it's not very high. So it's not that difficult to persuade the court that it's not the responsibility of the car producer and it's the responsibility of the individual car that should go to jail. So this is tricky because we do not have this sorted out. So these are the components to actually think about, and it's a little mind stretching, right? But it's good to see that picture. What is interesting about the direct trust is that, okay, so I'm interacting with another service, and I need to decide, okay, how I feel in that experience. Like, is my experience good or bad? Because that feeds the reputation, right, of that other service. Now, how I can judge that experience? Typically, we speak about judging it by two types of metrics. It's the quality of service metrics, and it's the social metrics. Now, the social metrics, like what it is, like what can be a social metric. And there is very interesting research going in that direction, how we really look at those autonomous agents as if they were living and like forming societies and interacting with each other. So one example of a social metric that you can look into is, for example, honesty, right? So like if I communicate with a person, I typically, when I see like this is an honest person, I see a high integrity and transparency of that person. These are kinds of like social metrics, right? That we judge. And it's so interesting to look into like how we could use similar metrics in those autonomous systems, because autonomous systems mimic human behavior to a certain degree. They mimic social behavior. So why couldn't we use those like social metrics to actually judge the interaction of the systems? So we are trying to look into this, and it's very interesting. So I will give you one example of a research where we look into using these social metrics. So one thing about this, like honesty, when you break it down, is that when you are interacting with a person and you are deciding, do I trust the person? What helps you trust the person is typically the transparency of that person who is willing to disclose certain information to you. Okay, so if that other person is ready to disclose some information to you, you are more likely to trust that person, especially when you can then hold that disclosed information and check integrity of behavior towards that disclosed information. So we are looking into like research of like, couldn't we use that in terms of these systems? So what if I am an autonomous vehicle? On the picture, we are working with drones. It can be like 2 drones, it can be 2 vehicles. So let's imagine that I'm interacting with another vehicle and I tell that vehicle, can you disclose some information about yourself? And the other vehicle can decide how much they disclose. As a human as well, right? So they might decide to disclose very little, and then maybe I pull myself back and keep like large distance. Or they might decide to disclose more. They just disclose more information about themselves. And then I can take that information in form of digital twin, for example, and I can use that digital twin in interaction to check compliance of the actual behavior with the declared behavior with the digital twin. So at runtime, I can actually see, are you true? Is your integrity, like, are you true to what you declared? Like, is your behavior, true behavior, in compliance with your declared behavior? Because if it is, that's kind of a social metric, right? Like, I have a higher tendency to trust you. And what is interesting about this is that, like, first of all, every interaction can then feed the reputation. Because if, like, I see in many interactions that, okay, this vehicle is really like disclosing how they will behave, and then they are true to that disclosed behavior. I can then say, yeah, I can feed this can propagate to the reputation model of that vehicle. And so when a new vehicle joins the ecosystem, I can see, okay, maybe we should be cautious and hold ourselves back. And maybe we do not allow the vehicle to come to certain zones in the city where we know that there are school areas or like big gatherings of people, because we don't trust it that much yet. But it can build its reputation over time and, like get access to certain, I would say, more protected places. It's very like interesting, and it's an ongoing research, which is quite fascinating. We tried a similar idea with updates that is downloaded to the car, and it works as well. So just imagine that situation that when a car downloads that update, and the update is executable, right? So it's a black box in a sense. The update can kind of like a sandbox that update and say, I will observe you for a while and decide like whether I trust you or not. So the car doesn't need to take the update and let the update control the critical driving function right away, right? It can sandbox the update for a while and observe it and see whether I trust it or not. So I can actually do we call it predictive simulation. I can try to see what the update is about to do. I can actually even ask that update for its digital twin. So I can, and that is something we are like doing as well. So the digital twin are used not only for the physical systems, but also for the digital systems. So I can have a digital twin, which is something I can check. I can, there's this disclosed information. I can really do this like predictive cognition, like what it is about to do. I know what the, like what this driving function, what this update is about to do. And this ability, like this is very interesting because by that, we are equipping the whole ecosystem by some cognitive ability. Because cognition is about knowing what is about to happen, and then even like controlling things that might be critical. Yeah, I will just skip the model because the previous example was just about we are trying to learn from humans as well. So working with the deep learning and machine learning, because very often when we are deciding about trust, we are learning, right? So I see how other people build trust, and we are learning as a society. We are learning from our culture how to build trust. So, okay. Is it challenging to build systems that actually work with trust and try to, make these decisions? Obviously, it is for many reasons. I will just like list a few. There are 2 minutes. Yeah. So listing a few. So obviously, as I mentioned, trust can be highly subjective. It can change in context. We can learn trust, but it can be then specific to the environment and from whom we learn. The trust score and reputation models need to be built very well, because obviously somebody who has high reputation might lose that reputation over time if they are not active in the ecosystem, and we should accommodate that. Also, there can be trust attacks, and that is like quite serious, especially because obviously, like when you look at, like I gave a Uber example, right? Like if I have many people who will give me high score because I tweak them into that, because they are my friends or because whatever, then I can like appear to be trusted even if I'm not. So this is really something to be taken seriously, that if I like build some like reputation models, I should accommodate for this likelihood that different agents will try to tweak it and, build it or bring it to their own advantage. And they can do that even like in coalition. So it can be, I hijack the coalition of other entities to trust me and then report me as trusted. But I'm doing that just for the purpose of building high reputation score. So these are the things to keep in mind. One interesting research we are working on, and something that I would also like encourage you to think about, is that just imagine that scenario that I know that somebody might not be trusted, but what if it's a car? Like, okay, I don't trust the car, but what I do next? how shall I protect myself, and how should I protect the rest of the city when I know this car cannot be trusted? And it's very interesting research and like safety assurance, because the traditional safety mechanisms we have, for example, in the car, are too static. Like it's just safety, like changing to a safety mode, but the car would need to do it itself. But if the car is programmed to harm, why would the car do that, right? So we need to have the mechanisms for more like adaptive safety mechanisms that can be controlled. And I will not go into that because, yeah, we are heading the end of the time. But it's very, very interesting kind of research of like more adaptive safety mechanisms, because that's what we humans do as well, right? Like when I don't trust you, I will keep myself safe, or I will report you that somebody takes control over you. But how to do that in those digital ecosystems? We should be responsible for that. So with that, I want to just say, yeah, trust is a very interesting topic. At the moment, we just trust everything, basically, that we get. Let's be more cautious in that and think about how we can build in trust management, trust mechanisms in the systems of the future so that we actually will want to use them. Otherwise, we might decide to actually stop it from the cities altogether if we don't prepare the technology to be safe for the humans. So thanks a lot for your attention. And if there are any questions or any discussion, I'm happy to take it.
Yeah, thank you very much for presentation.
I have the questions here, so.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Okay, you can read it. Okay.
Okay, cool. So I will take them as I see them from the top. So tech is not responsible for the misuse, but tech at times allows misuse at scale. Experts are against online elections for this very reason. Any thoughts on that? Oh, that will be very interesting discussion. Yeah, I think that, like, at least what I say when I speak about the topic is that I see danger in technology when it's in too few hands. That is something that I'm like trying to do, to really like bring technology to wider population, because I think the problem with also like misuse of technology at scale is because too many people think that they are not expert enough to interfere. I think that more people should feel confident to interfere and to open those discussions. But very many people, and that's also by tech being at a so, like, too many people are experts in a single thing, but we don't really have that many people who would be experts on everything, obviously. And so it's difficult to open those discussions. So I like it's a difficult discussion. It could be quite a big debate how to prevent it. So we won't have time probably for that, but I'm open for chatting about it after the talk. But I would say one thing we should definitely do is bring more people into understanding technology and feeling competent enough to talk about it. Because now too many people are really like staying outside and saying, I feel scared, but I don't know what to do. So just bringing more people on board with technology and opening up. There is the next one. So to become resilient, AI shall mimic the immune system of the society. How can then the or autonomous systems get any beyond we've got by million years of evolution? Yeah, that's a question whether we needed to get beyond where we are, and in which sense beyond. So when I think about these domains, like mimicking an immune response, it's more because we really, like, humans are super fragile, right? It's very easy to destroy a human on the street. It's, like, I mean, so it's more about how to feel protected. So this immune response is more about, yeah, what can we do to make humans feel more protected? Yeah, so, and I think that actually these millions of years of evolution are like fair enough benchmark, like what works and what doesn't. So yeah, but it's again more like philosophical, I would say. Should we look at the autonomous systems as tools or as individuals with personality? Oh, that's an interesting one. It answered the question of their responsibility. That's an interesting one. And there is a big debate on the ethical scale. Because indeed, these systems are evolving. And we often, like many people, are enthusiastic about letting these systems evolve to have human-like thinking and human-like feeling and human-like expression. To me, it's still tools, but I think that there would be people who disagree. When I think about technology and the role of technology, what is to me quite important is that technology is there to save time to us to be more human. So it shouldn't be that. I don't know if you know Heather McGowan. She is a big futurist, speaking a lot about the changes on the job market. And what she's saying is that actually we got the thing wrong because we let us to behave more like technology. We respond to notifications, right? We get the notification, we respond to it. We behave like technology. And we are trying building technology that behaves more human. We got it completely wrong. Shouldn't the technology be technology and so that it saves us time to be more human? So shouldn't be like the human capabilities reserved for humans. But I think that we are also comfortable and playful species. So very often when we try, like, what limits the technology can go to, it's a playfulness. We are a very playful species. So I think that making technology human is not really because we need to make technology human. We don't need it, and it doesn't benefit us. But it is very playful, you know, like it's a very playful way to find out. So to me personally, I would like to see technology serving humanity and having humanity being reserved for humans, and us humans coming back to our humanity more. Thank you very much.